There are 5 mistakes that can derail a home purchase for you as a home buyer before it even starts. And most buyers don't find out, or they don't realize it until it's too late. I've been selling real estate in Atlanta for years, and I've sat across from enough buyers to know exactly where things go wrong. And here's what I'll tell you. It's almost never the market. It's not bad luck. It's the stuff that nobody told them before they started. So I'm going to change that today. And I get it. There is so much noise out there. Everyone has an opinion. Your coworker who bought 3 years ago, your parents who think they know how it works because they bought a house 30 years ago, and the lender who wants to get you approved, the agent you're working with who wants to get you into a house. Everybody's talking, and not all of it is in your best interest. So what this video is, no fluff, no cheerleading, just the 5 things I genuinely wish every buyer knew before they started the process. If you're thinking about buying in the next 6 to 12 months, this one is going to be for you. Before we get started, I'm Erin Coker and I am a realtor here in Atlanta. If you enjoy this content, make sure you give it a like and join our community. And when you're ready, you can book a call with me. Link is in the description below. All right, let's get into it. 5 mistakes, starting with number 5 and working our way down to the one that I think catches the most people off guard. Mistake number 5, not having your timeline completely figured out. This sounds simple, but it surprises a lot of people. Most buyers think the process goes like this. You decide to buy, you find a house, you move in. And honestly, it can feel that straightforward from the outside, but the timing is a little longer than most people expect it to be. Here's a more realistic picture, getting pre-approved. Now, this is different than getting pre-qualified. Pre-qualified is where you basically just call a lender and say, yep, this is how much I make, and this is about what my debts are. It's not very official because anybody can call anyone and say anything. And what I really recommend you do is get pre-approved. This is where you would call a lender, they would pull credit, you would submit a lot of documentation like W-2s from your employer, maybe last year's tax statements, the whole 9 yards, and you would go through what's called the underwriting process, basically where the lender completely vets you as a buyer. It just makes things a lot smoother when you actually put a house under contract or you're making offers. Okay. Then, and that can take about, I don't know, maybe a week. So just keep that in mind. And then you have to find the right house, which can take about a month because I recommend that you look at a lot of things. And listen, that could be like the first house you walk into and you decide, yep, that's it. Or maybe it takes you 5, 10, 15 houses. Now, I think if you're looking at 20, I don't think you probably know what you're looking for. But you don't want to be rushed in the process because you have to get out when a lease is over. You want to take your time and you want to find the right house because when you find the right house, you will know it. So if you don't completely fall in love when you walk in, it's not the right house. But okay, so let's just say that takes 30 days. And then you have from contract to closing takes about 30 days. It can take a little bit longer, it can be a little bit shorter, but I always tell people to buffer in about 30 days. So from the time you decide you're ready to the day you get the keys, it's not unreasonable to think that this could take 2 or 3 months. And that's when things go smoothly. If something comes up like a credit issue, a lease situation, or maybe it's just a competitive market and you didn't get the first house that you put an offer in on because it had multiple offers. All of this stuff can make the process stretch out a little further than maybe what you think. Knowing this upfront just helps you make better decisions along the way. You'll know when to start, when to be patient, and when you actually need to move. It takes a lot of stress out of the process. Mistake number 4, chasing the perfect house. This one is so easy to fall into, and I completely understand why. When you've been saving and planning and imagining what your home is going to look like, you want it to feel right. And then you walk into a house that's staged, it's fully renovated, and it just looks like everything you pictured in your mind. It's really hard to walk away from that. The thing is, those houses almost always come with a premium built in. And in a competitive situations, the emotions of the moment can push buyers to stretch further financially than they ever plan to, and they get caught up in that. And here's really some of my best advice. Sometimes, just hear me out on this. Sometimes the better opportunity is the house that doesn't get as much attention. Maybe the kitchen needs to be updated at some point, or maybe the paint colors aren't your style, but the neighborhood is the same, the bones are solid, and there's room to negotiate. If you have a little budget for improvements, maybe you can do it yourself, maybe your dad can help you, that house might actually get you further in the long run. It's worth keeping an open mind when you're out looking. The house that becomes your favorite isn't always the one that look the best at first. Trust me on that. I did that with my house. Okay. Mistake number 3, only saving for the purchase. Most people are told to save for 2 things, their down payment and their closing cost. And that's true. Those are both real expenses that you need to budget for. Closing cost alone can run 2 or 3% of the purchase price. A lot of people don't realize that. 2 or 3% of the purchase price is about where closing cost will be. So if you are buying a $500,000 house, you're going to put 5% down. That's $25,000. You have to account for maybe another 10 grand on top of that for your closing costs, because down payment and closing costs are 2 totally different things. Home ownership comes with things that you can't always predict. Maybe it's an HVAC issue, a plumbing repair, something that just shows up in the first year that you maybe weren't expecting. If all of your savings went towards closing cost and a down payment, then those moments when something breaks can feel really stressful. A helpful way to think about this is 3 separate buckets. So you have your down payment money, you have your closing cost money, and I recommend having an emergency fund that you keep completely separate from the money that you're going to use to purchase your house. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, even if having $5,000 to $10,000 set aside outside of your purchase savings gives you a lot more breathing room once you have moved in. All right, mistake number 2, letting the lender decide what you can afford. And I know that sounds insane, but listen, this is one I really want people to understand because it can make a big difference in how home ownership actually feels day to day. When a lender pre-qualifies you, they're showing you the maximum amount you're eligible to borrow. Not necessarily what makes the most sense for your life. Those are 2 separate things, and it's worth knowing how to get to that number. Lenders qualify you based on your gross income. So before taxes, before insurance, before anything is taken out, maybe your retirement savings, groceries, they can count up to about 50% of that towards your housing payment on a conventional loan. But your take-home pay is a lot less than your gross. We know that. So that maximum payment can end up being much higher percentage of what you're actually bringing home each month. A lot of financial advisors suggest keeping your housing payment somewhere between 25 to 35% of your net income. That range gives you room to save, invest, handle surprises, and honestly just enjoy your life and go out to dinner with your friends and have a fun night out without worrying. Okay. It's worth doing the math before you meet with the lender, just so you can walk through knowing what feels comfortable for you. You don't have to borrow the maximum, and often you'll be glad you didn't. Okay, we ready for it? Number 1, this is probably the one I talk about most with buyers right now, just because the market has shifted so much over the past few years. Banking on short-term equity. For a long time, roughly, let's say 2012 through 2022, real estate went up pretty consistently in most major markets. So that includes Atlanta. People bought homes, they held them for 2 years, and they came out with significant equity if they sold. It really worked well for a lot of people. So it makes total sense that buyers are starting to build that into their plans. Buy now, hold for 2 or 3 years, and then sell it and use that equity to move up. It will feel like a reasonable strategy because for a decade it was and it worked for people. But hear me on this. The market looks a lot different now than it has in a really long time. Prices in a lot of areas have leveled off, and in some places like Texas and California, they've gone down considerably. Here in Atlanta, we've just pretty much plateaued. They haven't really gone up significantly in a lot of areas, but they haven't really dipped either. Inventory has been building. Homes are sitting on the market longer than they have in the last few years. And it's not a bad market, but it's just not the same either. Real estate is still a great long-term investment. I genuinely believe that. But the emphasis is on long-term. If you're buying with a 2 or 3 year window and counting on big appreciation to fund your next move, that's just a harder bet to make right now than it would have been just a couple years ago. The buyers I see feel really good about their purchase are the ones who bought for their life. The neighborhood they wanted to be in, the school district that mattered to them, the commute that made sense, the space their family actually needed. That foundation tends to hold up regardless of what the market does. If you found this video helpful, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me help more people like you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you on the next one.